We're going to talk about record keeping today. Record keeping according to the Department of Labor. Stay with us. I got a call the other day from a company. They're actually from the Netherlands. They have a location in Vancouver, but they have established a couple locations here in the United States. And one of her questions was, or her comments, I should say, was, we really don't know the employment laws in the United States. Is there any way that you could kind of just help us better understand, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? And I thought that was rather intriguing because I thought, well, of course, that's an honest question. How would she know if she's actually complying with U.S. laws here? And then I thought, well, there's a lot more individuals out there. We don't know how much of our audience is actually, based out of the United States with locations here and who's actually making decisions when it comes to employment. So I thought we'd start at the very, very foundation. And of course, that includes the mothership of the Department of Labor. So I pulled up the regs for record keeping, and I thought we would just kind of go over what does the DOL require of employers from the perspective of information on your employees. And remember, you should be doing this whether you have one employee or 100 employees. And I still occasionally run into a company who says, oh, we're too small. No one's going to pay any attention to us. It's not a problem till it's a problem. But unfortunately, sometimes it becomes more of a problem faster than you think. So let's go over this, because what's interesting to me is that one of the things that you need to be cognizant of is that the Department of Labor does not require that this information be gathered in any particular form or that it be collected in any particular fashion. Contrary to the Department of Homeland Security, where we have the I-9 and it has a timetable associated with it, this information should be collected as you're onboarding them and then continually updating it throughout their time of employment. And if you listen to the list, you'll better understand why I say that. Required information starts with basic payroll information. So employers must maintain employees' full name as used for Social Security purposes. And on the same record, the employee's identifying symbol or number, if such is used in place of a name on any time, work, or payroll records. Now, did you hear that? We have to collect the name as listed on the Social Security purposes for Social Security. That means if they're not using a Social Security card for List C on the I-9, you need to still identify that if they're using the name and applying on the application that they're Billy Brown, are they really Billy Brown on the Social Security card for Social Security reasons, or are they William Brown? How many of you have thought about that? And, none of your applications, I know for a fact that when people are filling out, whether it's online, electronic, or whether it's in paper, if they're filling out that employment application, they're more than likely giving you the name that they are accustomed to being used. Pandy is not my formal name. And that's what I write on everything. Sometimes I don't even put my last name, which drives some people nuts, but I mean, how many Pandys are there? But if I'm going to apply for a new job or if I'm going to fill out legal documents, I have to put my formal name, not Pandy. And you should be doing the same thing with your employees. How about the address, including zip code? And some people may have the same address in your workplace. That's okay. But again, be mindful, this is for payroll. And what does payroll associate with? Taxes. And what are taxes associated with? The W-2s. So you see where this is all going? If they're younger than 19, you have to have a birth date. But you don't and are not required according to the DOL, to have a birth date if they're over 19. Now, that is not one of the voluntary columns on DHS on the I-9, but when it comes to the Department of Labor, they don't care. They're over 19, don't care. How about sex and occupation? And again, we are not asking for a birth date on the application. We're not asking for their sex on the employment application. But from a payroll perspective and the Department of Labor's requirements, you still have the responsibility of recording that somewhere. I would suggest within that question, and a lot of people, let's just be truthful. If you really think about how you're collecting information on employees, a lot of that particular question and even birth dates that's completed with health insurance. So if you're offering benefits, again, we don't care how you're collecting it. We don't care when you're collecting it necessarily. But if they're filling out health insurance paperwork, maybe life insurance paperwork, it's required for the birth date and the sex. So as long as you've got it and you can use it if the DOL audits you, it's required. How about time and day of week when the employee's work week begins? What is that actually saying? That's saying that you need to be recording or that have it somewhere documented that the employee understands that the work week may be Monday to Sunday, which is different than the pay period. So as long as the employee knows I'm going to start getting paid on Monday for any time I work until Sunday. From a payroll perspective, what does that do? That not only identifies the work week, but it also identifies how to calculate overtime if that individual is a non-exempt employee. So if you're using timesheets, if you're using a timekeeping system, if you're using, whatever timekeeping program you are using, but you have to be recording that in some fashion. For those of you who are just paying individuals on a flat rate, if they are a non-exempt individual and they do not fit one of those exempt categories, you absolutely have to be collecting actual time to pay actual hours for anything over 40 on overtime. So just be cognizant. Even if they're an exempt employee, they need to know my time starts on Monday and ends on Sunday, or whatever you decide. That's a cultural company thing. How about the date of payment and the pay period covered by the payment? Similar to what we just said. So my work week may be Monday to Sunday, but my pay period may be every 2 weeks, or it may be once a month. But the employee has to know when that is. You need to have that documented, that you've shared that the employee understands that. That could be in your handbook. That could be in the offer letter. It's somewhere you're getting a signature from that individual saying, yeah, I understand. I'm only going to get paid once a month, or I'm going to only get paid twice a week, or twice a month, but it's mandatory. That's the basic information that is absolutely non-negotiable. Now, the following is a list of some additional information that an employer must maintain unless the employee is an exempt employee or, again, executive professional, outside sales, a qualified administrative individual. And this is not going to surprise you. And you've probably got it recorded somewhere, but you need to know this list. Hours worked each day and total hours worked each work week. Again, actual hours worked. They need to be recording that. So if you've got a non-exempt individual, I'm going to repeat this again because I see this common. We have individuals who are agreed to a flat rate and yet they're non-exempt. They should be getting overtime. We just pay them the flat rate and we don't really know when their hours are. That is a major violation. How about basis on which the employee's wages are paid? So again, go back to your offer letter. Did you put in there they're going to be paid on an hourly basis? Are they getting paid that flat negotiated rate? Are they going to be paid piecework? That has to be documented and that needs to have a signature of acknowledgement. The individual needs to understand that regular hourly pay rate so they can calculate overtime. Again, if it's in your offer letter, I'm going to pay you $9 an hour. You've got it documented that this is your regular hourly rate. Now, total daily or weekly straight time earnings. Go back to your payroll. Make sure. Now, your big sophisticated payroll companies, they're going to have the payroll register. They're going to have the journal. They're going to give you all these reports that kick this out. But how many of you who are processing your own payroll, are you making it known? Are you giving them a pay stub so they understand their total daily and weekly straight time earnings? They need to have that, and you need to be able to produce it if you get audited. Overtime earnings within the work week are the exact same thing. And I still run into individuals, not so much outside of the United States, but just even individuals here in the United States that they just can't comprehend or haven't grasped the fact that it's over 40 within a work week. So if someone worked 44 hours in this work week, you do not get to take those 4 hours and move those into the next week. You have to pay that overtime accumulated and earned within that work week. And then, of course, all additions to or deductions from the employee's wages. And this is one that more of you are not documenting. And I cannot stress enough. You cannot make deductions. I was just talking to a woman this morning who said, well, we've got a guy who's out. He's on a leave of absence, but we've just continued paying him. We'll just get the money back when he gets back. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? She goes, well, we'll just start deducting it a little bit at a time out of his check. I said, has he signed an agreement? Has he agreed to allow you to do that? And she just looked at me and went, well, he owes it to us. He has to agree. You know what? He doesn't. Legally, he does not have to agree. You volunteered, you chose as the employer to continue paying him out of the goodness of your heart. Yes, I understand. But you legally cannot withhold any funds from him. And I see a lot of this with tools that aren't returned or uniforms that aren't returned. We're just going to withhold it from his last check. You cannot do that unless you have a signed document saying they understand this is what's going to happen. Look, there's certain language that will be a major benefit for you. And again, if you have problems with this, contact your labor law attorney or call me. My goodness, just call me and I'll give you the language to be putting into your policies so that employees understand. If they owe you the money, then there's going to have to be some kind of reconciliation at the end, and it won't be blindsided by it. This stuff is easy. And as I said at the beginning of the show, this is not stuff that you should be at all surprised about. You're probably already doing all this. And maybe some of it you're not doing quite tight enough or organized enough that you could readily access it if someone were to request an audit or a review or just a verification that their payroll or their information is correct. I want to also remind you too, so many of you have in your handbooks that if a name change occurs, if your address changes, if any of your personal information changes, please let us know. Well, I would highly recommend that you control that information because it's so important to the requirements of the Department of Labor and anyone employing people. Make sure that that information isn't just going to a supervisor and it sits on somebody's desk or it sits out on the workroom bench. It's actually considered what I call sacred information, private information, and it's going directly to somebody who has a need to know, who can make the corrections or make the updates and protect that information. The Department of Labor doesn't play games, guys. It doesn't. And again, this list is on their site under the Fair Labor Standard Act under record keeping. If you would like a copy, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to send you a copy of that. You can reach out to me at any time. But This is stuff that you need to be making sure that your office is actually doing. Great topic. Can't believe we haven't approached it before. I want to say hello to Katie and Robin up there in the Cleveland market. We're very fortunate to have them start listening now. And again, we'll listen. We're excited about any of you. If you have a question or a concern, just simply let us know. We base these shows on, well, on you. And we appreciate you watching. So hopefully we'll see you next week right here at the Human Resource.